Before we assemble the cake, we want to ensure everything's completely level. We do this by removing the dome off the sponges. I'm taking a serrated knife and just cutting all the way around the edges before cutting through to ensure that there's a flat top. Make sure you repeat this with all of the cakes. Now before we start assembling the cake, we want to ensure that we've got our cake board on a non-slip mat to ensure that things don't move around. And what I'm doing is I'm applying a little bit of buttercream to the board to ensure that the sponge is secure and doesn't move around. Using a piping bag filled with a Biscoff Buttercream, I'm just creating a ring around the edge. What this does, it prevents the actual Biscoff Spread from leaking out from the sides. I've gone in with a couple of tablespoons of the Biscoff Spread before spreading it out with an offset spatula. Now add the next layer of cake on top of this with the crumb side of the sponge facing inwards. Repeat this with the remaining layers of cake. With your last layer, you want to ensure that the crumb side is facing inwards so that the top layer is easy to smooth out. Now we're going to crumb coat the cake. So this is essentially the layer of buttercream that is going to trap in all the crumbs, allowing us to ensure we've got a smooth outer surface. At this stage, you want to smooth out that buttercream. Now I like to use a metal scraper, hold it at approximately a 45-degree angle and turn the turntable whilst holding the scraper in place for now. If you hold the scraper in one place, what you're trying to do is level out that buttercream across the cake. You will get a lot of excess on your scraper at this point. Now you can scrape that off so that you can continue smoothing and pop it in a bowl, or just scrape it off and place it on top of the cake so that we can use it as part of the crumb coat for the top. Now you're going to have to keep scraping the cake down until there are no gaps in the buttercream and you see that there's a nice smooth even surface. I'm using any excess buttercream from the scraper itself to fill in any holes and any gaps on the cake to ensure that there is a smooth and a level surface. Now you can start smoothing out the top of the cake, but a little tip for you, don't put too much pressure on as the cake will be soft and you don't want it to move around too much. So very gently go around the cake and around the edges as well, and don't worry about it looking a little bit scruffy at this point. We will tidy it up, but it is just a crumb coat. As you start smoothing the cake out, you will see a lip of buttercream forming around the edges of the cake. You just need to bring your palette knife inwards to smooth that out. Once you're happy with your crumb coat, I would recommend you refrigerate it for about an hour. The crumb coat's now had time to firm up in the fridge, so I'm going to go in with my final layer of buttercream. Now in the same way that we did the crumb coat, we just need to apply a thick layer of buttercream and start smoothing it out. A little tip for you is to maybe warm up your buttercream just slightly, maybe 10 or 15 seconds in the microwave so that it goes on really nice and smooth. Now if you're not going to be decorating the cake with a drip of any sort, make sure that you apply the buttercream on the top of the cake and completely level it out before you start smoothing out the edges. And the reason being is because when you've got a lip around the edge of the cake and you smooth it out afterwards, it can get a little bit messy and often turns out a little bit uneven. Now before you smooth it out for one final time, run your metal cake scraper under boiling hot water and then remove all of the excess water from the actual scraper itself. Be very careful not to burn yourself, but using this, do a final smooth out because this will help get the smoothest finish you can on your buttercream. Now flattening the top and getting a sharp edge. I'm not great at these, but the best way to do it is to level your palette knife where you're about to scrape on the edge and pull it inwards like I'm doing here. After each drag, ensure you're removing the buttercream from the palette knife. Don't forget to tidy up your board using a wet paper towel or a dough cutter like I use. Now I'm going in with my Biscoff drip. I've melted the Biscoff spread in the microwave for about 60 seconds and I have refrigerated my cake so that the actual cake doesn't melt itself. Now I apply the Biscoff spread with a spoon and then just using the same spoon I encourage it over the edge like so. One thing to be a little bit cautious about is that the Biscoff spread is a little bit runnier than ganache, so it does drip a lot more. So just don't go too crazy with it. Once you finish your drip, you can decorate however you like. I'm using a 1M piping nozzle and a little bit more Biscoff Buttercream on top with some crushed Biscoff biscuits, a balloon and a lot more Biscoff decorations. And that's your cake done. It's a lot easier than it looks when you've got the right equipment. Ensure you've got fantastic palette knives, a good metal scraper and a fantastic turntable like I've got. I've linked all of these items on my Amazon shop. The link is in the caption. I'd love to know your thoughts and let me know if you've got any questions in the comments. Thanks for watching.